Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order is a game that I have some mixed feelings about, but for everything that this game does well, there is something about that thing that I dislike. A little confusing, I know, but just bear with me and I promise it will make a lot more sense later on. But first I want to start off where I usually do in these videos and look back at this game's development and yes, even a little bit of controversy. Fallen Order was developed by Respawn Entertainment and published by EA. Now, just EA's name alone was enough for some concerns to be raised by the Star Wars fanbase. You see, 2 years earlier in 2017, EA released Star Wars Battlefront 2, a game that is now very good and fun to play, but back in 2017, this shit was the biggest cash grab you've ever seen. There was a huge scandal around this game's loot boxes and microtransactions. In fact, if my memory serves me correctly, EA was even sued by the US government, with one US senator saying that Star Wars Battlefront 2 is a Star Wars themed online casino designed to lure kids in to spend money. Understandably, with this being fresh in people's minds, hearing Star Wars and EA in the same sentence was a very big bright red flag for a lot of people. Also, around this time, another completely separate but equally greedy company known as Ubisoft were being criticised for having microtransactions in single player games. This led a lot of people to the conclusion that EA might take some notes out of Ubisoft's book and add their own microtransactions to Jedi Fallen Order. On top of this, a few months before the game's release, there was an interview with one of the game's directors. It was revealed that Respawn toyed with the idea of the main character being female or black, but they ultimately decided to scrap that idea due to how Rey from the movies was poorly perceived by fans. This led to a very vocal group of people saying that this was a big missed opportunity to increase diversity in the franchise. Let's be honest here, this is really a non-controversy. It's not like EA or Respawn decide to make a big retcon to some well-established lore or anything like that. They just decided to make the main character a white bloke. And Rey was poorly received not because she was a woman, but because she was a poorly written character, and just so happened to be the face of probably the worst time in the franchise's history. Oh, and if you're one of those weirdos that think Rey being a woman is the reason why she sucks, you're a weird incel loser. On the other hand, if you're about to comment that I'm racist and misogynistic for saying that I think it's okay for them to make the main character of this game a white man, that's literally impossible because I am a huge fan of black lesbian porn. Anyway, enough about that dumb shit and back to the game. The development was also plagued with a lot of performance issues. This mostly stemmed from Respawn trying to push the Unreal 4 engine to its absolute limits. Consoles actually ran worse than PC due to the way that consoles handled data to and from the memory. This leads me straight into the gameplay, and yeah, these performance issues are still present in the game even in 2025. Now, I played this game on my Xbox Series X, so I have no idea if it's better or worse on PC like I mentioned earlier, but even in the game's performance mode, I was still having major stutter and frame drops at times. With that being said though, I actually played this game on release on my old Xbox One, and believe me, even with these issues still present, it is a lot better than what it was back then. I remember on my very first playthrough of the game, I got attacked by an untextured T-posing enemy, whereas in this playthrough, I still experienced some issues, but nothing that major. Graphically, this game still looks good even by today's standards, and that probably is thanks to how far Respawn decided to push the UE4 engine. This also leads me back to what I said at the beginning of this video. For every positive thing that I can say about this game, there's also a negative that goes along with it. Kinda like, you know, every action has an equal or opposite reaction type of thing. In this example, the graphics aged well, but the opposite reaction to that is that the game runs like shit at times because of what they had to do to get these graphics. Another example of this would be the combat. The core lightsaber combat is definitely very Souls-like inspired, and I am a sucker for Souls-likes. It is my favourite genre of games, and I do think that when everything in this game decides to work well, it can be a really fun beginner-friendly Souls-like, or I suppose a more correct term would be Souls-light, but more on that later. But that's the thing, if everything decides to work well. You see, much like the game's performance, the combat can be very hit or miss at times. The main three issues I found were when you dodge after being hit, especially if that hit knocks you over, it can sometimes feel a bit unresponsive and can sometimes lead to you being hit a second time. Another issue with the dodges is that sometimes you will get stuck dodging in one direction, even if you're pushing the analog stick in another direction, which again can lead to you taking hits that you otherwise would have dodged. And probably the biggest issue here is that the heal button sometimes just straight up doesn't work. If you've played a Souls-like before, you'll know that a well-timed heal can mean life or death, especially in a boss fight. Now, I want to loop back again. I know, a lot of loopbacks in this video, but bear with me here. And I just wanted to talk about why I call this game more of a Souls-light. And if you've put your thinking cap on, you can probably guess by now it's because this game does have Souls-like elements, like the combat, but the game is also such a big departure from what you think of when you think of the term Souls-like. For example, this game has a lot of climbing and puzzle sections that are more akin to the Uncharted and Tomb Raider games. And the skill tree in this game is nowhere near as in depth as the ones in Dark Souls are. Exploration and backtracking are also a huge part of this game. You see, Cal has the rare force ability of psychometry, which means he can see events by touching inanimate objects. This is basically a lore reason for Cal and the player to gain extra insight into the game's overall story. But the thing is, finding these objects gives you XP, and most of the time it's actually a decent amount, meaning you never really have a moment while exploring the world where you go, oh wow, I just did all of that for a stupid audio log I don't care about, because the XP is still a really good reward. At the beginning of the game, Cal starts off with almost none of his force abilities. When exploring, these force abilities are used to open doors to find these items where Cal can get XP. So it is very important for you to actually backtrack, especially after gaining a new power, as if you don't, you could miss out on some very good skills that could aid you in your journey, especially if you aren't used to the Souls-like combat. Another thing that makes the backtracking and exploration fun is the interconnected maps. I saw some complaining online about how people found the level design to be confusing, but I actually quite enjoyed how large parts of this game will constantly loop back in on themselves. And personally, I think without this, the game would be a lot less fun. Moving over to the story now, you play as Jedi Padawan Cal Kestis 5 years after the events of Order 66. Cal is in hiding on the planet Bracca where he works as a scrapper, but one day an accident happens which causes Cal to use the Force to save his best friend Prof. During this event, an Imperial probe droid sees him using the Force, and not long after, 2 Inquisitors arrive known as the Second and Ninth Sisters, with the mission of killing Cal. Prof is killed by the second sister and Cal attempts to escape. Whilst trying to escape, Cal is rescued by a former Jedi named Sia and her pilot Grease, who welcome him on their ship named the Mantis. Sia then takes Cal to a planet called Bogano and tells Cal to see if he can open an ancient vault, as well as cryptically telling him that there's someone here he needs to meet. This someone turns out to be a droid named BD-1 who quickly befriends Cal. It is also revealed that BD-1 is stored with encrypted messages from Sia's old master named Eno Cordova. Cordova reveals that the vault was made by an ancient race of aliens called the Zepho, and that he has hidden a holocron with a list of Force-sensitive children inside. Sia wants to use this list to rebuild the Jedi Order, but they have to follow Cordova's path and unlock BD's encrypted files to figure out how to open it. They all travel to the Zepho homeworld, and Cal goes out to explore an ancient temple where he finds a clue that tells him Cordova went to speak to a Wookiee chieftain on Kashyyyk named Tarful. On Kashyyyk, Cal is caught up between the Wookiee and Rebellion forces battling the Empire. Whilst caught up in the battle, Cal meets Saw Gerrera and helps him to free the Wookiees. Cal is unable to find Tarful and decides to go back to Zepho to search for more clues when he is ambushed by the second sister. The second sister reveals to you that her real name is Trilla Siduri and she is Sia's former Padawan. Trilla explains that her capture and corruption to the Empire was because Sia betrayed her. After getting away from the second sister, Cal discovers clues about an ancient artifact called an Astrium, which is used to access the vault. After this, Cal is captured by a bounty hunter from the Haxian brood, forcing him to fight in a gladiatorial arena. After Cal is rescued by Sia and Grease, they go back to Kashyyyk and finally make contact with Tarful. Tarful tells Cal to investigate the top of the origin tree. When on top of the origin tree, Cal uncovers another recording by Cordova which reveals that there is an Astrium in a Zephyl tomb on the planet Dathomir. After Cal discovers this, he is attacked by the Ninth Sister but quickly defeats her. On Dathomir, Cal's progress is impeded by a Night Sister named Merrin. Merrin blames the Jedi for the massacre of her people that happened not long after the Clone Wars. Whilst on Dathomir, Cal has a flashback of his master Jara Tapal sacrificing himself to save Cal during Order 66. During this intense flashback, Cal's kyber crystal in his lightsaber is destroyed. After this, Cal meets a former Jedi named Taran Malakos, who has succumbed to the dark side of the Force and taken a leadership role in the Night Sisters and Night Brothers community. Malakos tries to tempt Cal to the dark side, but Cal refuses and flees after Merrin attacks both of them. After this, Cal travels to Elam to gain a new kyber crystal and build a new lightsaber. Cal then returns to Dathomir where he defeats Malakos with the aid of Merrin and gets the Astrium. After this, Merrin decides to join the Mantis crew and help them on their journey. Back on Bogano, Cal unlocks the vault and experiences a vision where he rebuilds the Jedi Order, but they are eventually all killed or tortured by the Empire. After getting out of this vision, Trilla attacks Cal and escapes with the holocron. Seer then decides to reassume her role as a Jedi and officially knight Cal before the two of them decide to infiltrate Fortress Inquisitorius on Mustafa's ocean moon of Nur. After battling their way through the fortress, they eventually come across Trilla, who Cal defeats. Seer decides to reconcile with Trilla, but before Trilla can fully redeem herself, Darth Vader suddenly appears and kills her. Darth Vader then proceeds to mog an aura farm on Cal, forcing him to run away. After they escape, the crew celebrates, but come to the realization that the children on this list will be in more danger if they become Jedi than if they were to be left alone. Cal then destroys the holocron with his saber and asks where they should go next. So, I really like this story all the way up until the ending. I feel like the writers ended things the way they did because they forgot that they can't have Cal rebuild the Jedi Order because Luke is supposed to do that between the 6th and 7th movie. Other than that, this story is really good, and when it comes to all the characters you meet, the writers nailed giving them that old school Star Wars charm. I also think that this story came just at the right time for Star Wars. As previously mentioned, both the games and movies were in a pretty shitty place. But this game and the Mandalorian TV series came out around the same time, and both of these properties probably helped save the franchise in their own respective mediums. To finally sum up this whole video, Jedi Fallen Order is mostly a great game. It does have some buggy gameplay issues and a bit of a questionable ending to the story, but overall it is 100% worth a playthrough if you haven't played it already. Anyway, that's it for today's video, bye.